So I'm going to have to add the Fleet Street Fox to one of the journalists that has really been covering the mess of Brexit quite accurately and distinctly and giving her own spin on it. And she's quite a good journalist. So the one that's really caught my attention today is that the Brexit zombies are going to eat this country alive. From the new IRA to Ann Widdecombe, the politically dead are rising from the grave to terrorise us again. We cannot Brexit. We could never Brexit. The people who offered it to you, sold it to you, are insisted on it for you, are liars, charlatans and pocket-lining creeps. The insoluble logic is not enough to stop those who have been long ignored from attempting to resurrect the rotting corpses of their long-dead reputations. Welcome back, terror, hate, hypocrisy, and a very poor thought process. How we haven't missed you. A nation that decriminalised homosexuality 52 years ago is being told to vote for a woman who thinks homosexuals can be cured. The nation that came up with a brilliant solution to a vicious 30-year conflict is being told that it shouldn't do the one thing guaranteed to restart it. A nation which established the welfare state 113 years ago is marking the anniversary by making the poorest 10% of its poorer people still even more poorer. People are divided on whether there is any such place as hell, but there is no way this road leads anywhere good. Brexit, during the Brexit referendum, they were warned that a vote to leave the European Union would give the dormant IRA and its dissident children fuel for their fires. 4 months ago, the new IRA set off a car bomb in Derry. 6 weeks ago, it sent a letter to bomb British airports, a train station and an army recruitment centre. 6 days ago, it murdered journalist Lyra McKee, who had committed the atrocious crime of reporting on the riots that followed a police raid on suspected terrorist arms caches. At her funeral today, Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn are attending the official goodbye to a 29-year-old woman whose too few words were always made more sense than their own. Perhaps they will have the self-awareness to note that the Brexit they have between them, wanted for years, handed her killers their best recruitment tool in decades. The threat of border controls has sown resentment and belligerence in a handful of hearts, and the old proverbs are now able to persuade young idiots to join them. While May and Corbyn wrestle with the intellectual issues like the two recalcitrant ducks, two new parties have formed to fight the upcoming EU elections. One is Change UK, which is a funny tinge of which has a funny tinge of twats about it. The other is the Brexit Party, which has not so much as a tinge of an absolute shower of precisely the sort of morons you thought Britain had decided to ignore. Step forward travelling DJ Nigel Farage, whose recent lack of attention on the international speaking tours has led him to throw himself before the TV cameras in an attempt to get his last job back. If you think that hating the EU would logically lead to boycotting it, think again. Farage made £870,000 a year out of the organisation while failing to take part in much of its work. No one appears to have asked him how exactly he thinks being re-elected to an institution he loathes will destroy it, but perhaps he self-identifies as a virus now. Or maybe he's trying to recoup the $350 million he was doctored for misspending EU funds, money which came from the UK taxpayer originally. By his side is the joyless, self-publicising wannabe nun Ann Widdecombe, a woman who described reality TV as vulgar and voyeuristic before raking in fees for appearing on Celebrity Big Brother, Strictly Come Dancing, Celebrity Fitness Club, Celebrity Antiques Road Trip, 24 Hours in the Past, Sugar Free Farm, and 4 pantomimes, and Ann Widdecombe investigates. Harder to stomach than her hypocrisy is her intolerance. In 2012, she said homosexuals should be helped to become heterosexual. It's unclear what qualifications her properly qualified professional would need, but presumably being openly nasty is one of them. While we're distracted by the circus of self-immolation, the austerity no one much liked and everyone was told it was over is getting worse for 6.5 million people. The Institute for Financial Studies has found 1.9 million of them will lose £1,000 a year through universal credit, which hits the poorest most hardest of all. In 1909, as part of the welfare state reforms, David Lloyd George told Parliament, "This is a war budget. It is for raising money to wage an implacable war against poverty and squalidness." 2 years later, after much arguing, workers were allowed sick pay of 10 shillings a week for 26 weeks and at about £57 in today's money. In 2019, those aged 24 or younger get job seekers allowance at £57.90 for 26 weeks. You may think that these are desperate things. You may think that these are three desperate things: welfare cuts, a mad ex-minister, and Brexit. But they are the landmarks beside this path on our nation that is embarked upon, and they point to nothing good. We may be led by donkeys, but the alternatives being presented to us are hate-filled, self-pleasuring asses, and none of them has a plan for getting us to the destination they promise. How can Change UK achieve it if its members won't work for a general election? How can the Brexit Party leave the institution that provides it with life? How is anybody going to take control of one border we need to be in control of if we leave the EU, and which we are forbidden under international law from exerting any control over? These people are zombies. Their dreams died years ago, but they still shuffle on, muttering and groaning monotonously, while we point at the funny people, those things that make our nation great. Wisdom, welfare, sensitivity, and the prevailing weather conditions are being abandoned. You would want to get off the bus if you had a zombie driving it, so none of them wanders into your living room during the 6 o'clock news, despite with whatever is to hand. These Brexit zombies will die if you hit them with hard facts. Journalism or not, interrogate what they offer. Ask for better. Arm yourselves with sharp wit and decisive questions. Just because they're stupid doesn't mean you have to be. If this stuff terrifies you, and it should, then step up and play your part. Don't assume it will blow over and sanity will restore itself. That's not how madness works. Every horror film tells you that sanity is something you have to fight for. And whether the UK accepts Brexit was never possible, whether the niche and the never was a very niche and never a good idea, perhaps the road will become less rocky. I completely agree. You have two sort of new parties, and both aren't really providing any really concrete answers to the problems that were created by Brexit, which is the main thrust of austerity. All these Brexiteers blamed austerity and people's working conditions on migrants and the EU, and they were not the cause of their problems. And just as it was mentioned in the article, you are now £900 worse off. And if you're on universal credit, then you just lost £1,000. This is, and this is to poor people. To poor people, £1,000 is a lot of money. And that is a lot of money to lose. Our government should be taking care of the poorest in society. So I think that is the best way of how to best judge a society. Look at how it treats its most poorest and vulnerable people. And if you're going to make that judgment and look at our society, we are not doing a very good job at all.